Carrie Adams, and you're listening to Carrie's Connoisseurs, coming to you from Solid Gold Podcasts. Here we talk to the movers and shakers, the drinkers, the dreamers, and all the people who make it happen in the liquor and luxury industries from around the world. Hello everybody, and welcome to another Carrie's Connoisseurs podcast. Today I've got the crown jewels, I think, in my studio, but having said that, I better rephrase that. That could come across as offensive. Christo Le Riche, guys. Christo Le Riche doesn't really require too much introduction. He is here because yesterday I was privileged enough to be at a tasting of his 2021 vintage of the Reserve release, which was just astounding. So I enticed him into my studio today, and here he is. Welcome.
Thanks, Carrie. Lovely to be here.
So we have to look at that blue light every now and again so that everybody can see your big eyes. And for the rest, you and I are just going to look at each other. Yeah. Christo is fourth generation. Fifth, seventh. What are you?
No,
lots of generations.
Second generation in the
of Le Riche. I mean, the Le Riche farm has been there.
No. My dad was the first winemaker since we sold our family farm in 1720 in Franschhoek. So we haven't been involved in winemaking for a very long time.
For as long as that.
No, we'd come out of the Kalahari. So we were part of the Kalahari National Park. My great-great-grandfather was still part of the negotiations with the then government to establish the park.
Oh, really?
And so, you can go all the way back, but there's Elias Le Riche, who was my grandfather's cousin, was the head game ranger from 77 until 94 in the Kalahari. Really? And then before him, Joep Le Riche was there from 1940 till 1977. And Joep was my grandfather's father, Martin Le Riche. They were brothers. And then their father, or actually their grandfather, he was kind of not that loved by the English down in the Cape. So he kind of made his way up to where they couldn't find him.
Was it that English-French thing still?
No, it wasn't the English-French. It was more he was French, but it was more of an English. By that stage, we were so Dutch that we were kind of part of that more Afrikaans kind of mindset. And he had gone up to the Kalahari and he had started a trading post. And they had started to trade with the San people who were in the region. And he had just grown in love with the people and the region and what the Kalahari was all about. And through that trading post and getting to know all the farmers in the area, they started to identify that this needs to become a kind of a national reserve. And so then in around the 1920s, they were very involved with negotiations with the government, and they helped to demarcate the whole Kalahari.
Wow.
And once the park was established, there was 60 years, so 3 generations of Le Riches managing the park from there.
Wow. And have you ever had any burning desire to go and be a game ranger?
Actually, yes. When I was 9 years old, I wanted to go actually become a game ranger.
Oh, did you?
And then I quickly realized that
I could be a game ranger.
I think it's an extremely romantic job to be involved in. But then I quickly realized that I won't be able to feed my family with it. So
you could eat the animals. It's a little bit counterproductive.
And you're there to keep them alive, not to the other direction. So no, I quickly realized that game ranging wasn't for me. And then by about 14 years old, it was like, well, I love the outdoors, I love the sciences, I've got this amazing wine business that I can get involved in. So it was kind of a no-brainer from there to move into the wine industry.
So you were born in Franschhoek, or where?
Belleville Hospital.
Okay, well, we'll move swiftly on. We'll move swiftly on from that. We'll forgive you for being born in Belleville Hospital.
No, but so we were living at Rustenburg Estate at that stage.
Yeah, that's right. Your dad was the winemaker, he was cellar master there.
Yeah, he was cellar master there. But no, so my mom went through to Belleville Hospital for the birth.
So born and bred on Rustenburg, I can think of worse places to be born.
It wasn't bad, I must say.
And worse families
it was
to
really
have
quite
to
amazing.
And the Barlows just the nicest people.
No, it's amazing people. It was
Loving
still
space.
Peter and Pamela Barlow
Yeah.
were still in charge when my father moved in.
Yes.
So and then my dad worked for a long time under Pamela, which was also, I mean, she was such a lovely old lady. But surprisingly enough, my dad's our English pointer. There was one person who couldn't come near the house, and that was Pamela. She did not like her.
Well, you must always trust a dog.
We got into trouble for that a little bit, but luckily she was a dog person.
You must always trust the dog's know-how. They know better than people. Maybe there was something about our Pam that we didn't know about.
No, I don't think so. She was a lovely lady.
She was lovely, but you never know.
And then the Jersey cows on the farm, which was obviously one of her big loves and passions. Just walking around the farm, having the cows and the sheep at that stage still with the Motleys. I still stay with the Motleys now, actually every year when we go up for the Winemaker Surf Classic in Jongersfontein. So they retired out in Jongersfontein. So we've still in contact with them. Charles Withington, who owns the Darling Wine Shop.
I remember Charles so well. He used to come and visit me at Norman Goodfellow. He's also such a nice man.
So it was this beautiful community of people. Kevin Watt, who's now a viticulturist still in Stellenbosch.
Fabulous viticulturist.
I've got so many good memories, and just like growing up on the farm, running around. I still remember breaking the cow stables gate when me and one of my best friends were swinging on the gate when we were 7 years old. So we got into a lot of mischief.
Kids could still have that kind of upbringing, hey?
But you still get that growing up in the farms, and I think that's the beauty of winemaking is, we get winemakers' salaries, and it's tough to own the farms in Stellenbosch, but you've got this lifestyle of this incredible lifestyle you grow up with. You meet amazing people throughout the world, and you're living in this beautiful surroundings of the Cape Winelands.
I know.
So it really is
an unbelievable
career to be involved in.
I've travelled to a lot of the wine regions of the world, and the Western Cape really, really is up there with the best of them. Hey, I think maybe the Mosel might be more beautiful.
I haven't been there.
If you go down the river,
there.
and there's huge castles up the river banks, and I mean it's like fairyland.
But Piedmont is just as spectacular.
No, listen.
So there's a lot of beautiful spaces out there.
We're in love with Wineland, so they're all gorgeous. But
I know, but we've got the oceans, we've got the mountains, we've got Cape Town.
Western Cape is very beautiful.
It's a nice place, except we've got the wind as well, which is a little bit.
I know that
unpleasant,
wind. It's the one reason that I can't do Cape Town. I hate the wind. But for the rest, anybody who's never been to the Cape Winelands, make a plan, you're missing out. So your father has to go down in the annals of time, in the world of wine, as one of the people most sensitive to Cabernet Sauvignon. He's a Cabernet whisperer. He is like the cab whisperer. He makes the best Cabernet in the country, and certainly in many parts of the world, he makes the best Cabernet. And he sort of whispered it to you somehow along the line, because I tasted a sensational 21 vintage yesterday, and it's just got that Le Riche cellar stamp on it. You can smell that Le Riche recipe. You just can. It's Le Riche magic. Your father bought his farm in the Jonkershoek, eh?
No, we rented in the Jonkershoek.
Did you rent in the Jonkershoek?
My dad was a
Tell us the story.
winemaker, yeah. So, come 1995, my dad had been at Rustenburg for 21 years at that stage. And it was an amazing start and kickoff to his career. But he had come to a point where he wanted to move on and kind of pursue his own direction. And it was funny. He came and he sat us down the one evening, and he was like, right, we've got 3 options. And he was like, we either moving to Canada, where there was a big job in Ontario that he was offered.
You can make ice wine, maybe some more ice wine and some more ice wine.
I've got no idea what we would have done then. And I would probably have been in sailing and
you'd have done
fishing.
Boredom.
I'm very, very glad we didn't do that move. Or he would have taken the position at Del Air, which was one of the other options.
Could have been worse.
Which was also a lovely estate, and that would have been also a great move. Or he can take the risk and go out on his own. And fortunately, he decided to go out on his own, and it really worked for us. So he found a little cellar in the Jonkershoek Valley.
I didn't realize he leased that. I thought that he'd bought that. Okay.
No, so we leased that. And the cellar was last in production in 1966. So when we moved in, it was a tractor store. It was dusty. The concrete tanks had to be relined and kind of cleaned up. The open-top fermenters at the back were used for storage, and at some stage, I think they had stored some pigs in there. So from a hygiene point of view, they all were epoxy lined, so we just make sure that none of that's in the concrete actually can get into the wine.
Not too much wrong with a pig, though. We're fine with pigs.
I like eating them.
I
don't want to smell them in my wine. I don't want to smell them in my wine. It's just one of those. I can do forest floor and Pinot Noir, but I can't do pig
even
style.
that at a push. Yeah.
So we cleaned up the little cellar. We were renting from Cubis Marais then, and the Marais are actually still on the farm, 6th generation.
Are they?
They've been there for a very, very long time. And yeah, that's actually where Thistle and Weed are based now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so
that's a nice one.
Ridiera moved in after us. Teddy's ex-wife.
Ex-wife, yeah.
Yes. So that little cellar was just this beautiful small space. But by 2010 we had kind of grown out of that cellar. There were only 5 open tops in there. We didn't have many more barrel room left. And the biggest issue with the cellar was that there were 4 big 15,000 litre tanks. And
Probably
no other
why
tanks.
The wine was so nice.
Yeah, so my dad had to, at that stage, he used to buy the vineyards in and blend everything coming into just after harvest. So he would ferment the wine, taste it, and he'd be like, right, that's my reserve, that's my Cabernet, that's the Richesse. And that was all pumped into one tank. And that was it for
So it was
for the rest
quite
of the
limiting,
season.
really, to
establish
the wine that you really
couldn't
wanted
really nitpick as to the quality of individual vineyards. It was all based on gut feel and what he saw in the vineyards and what he tasted during the ferment.
Which makes the quality of those old Le Riches even more alarming.
No, it's a spectacular. How my
If you
father,
think of it.
he's just had a knack for walking to a vineyard, and he's always said, and this is something I've also taken from there. So when we walk into a new vineyard and we're trying to find something in the different wards and regions in Stellenbosch, it's always looking for a vineyard that's in balance. And you can walk into a vineyard and you immediately know, listen, this is possibly a great vineyard or not. I'm kind of biased. If I can see the sea, I'm happy. And then that means that this is probably going to be a nice vineyard. So in general, most of my vineyards actually have got a sea view over them, which also means that if you can see the sea breeze is going to hit you at some stage.
You can taste and smell it.
But it's also got an element to do with how is the vine in balance, how much vigor is there. If Cabernet has too much growth, it's horrible. It just doesn't work.
It goes green and leafy.
Exactly.
Just like the vine.
And it takes so much work to get it into balance. It's just not worth it in the end of the day.
But that's the trick, really, if you think of it in life. It's all about balance, really, isn't it?
That's true.
It's all balance.
It's very deep and philosophical. But,
we do
true.
get deep on this program. Every now and again we get deep. So you can get as deep as you like, Christo. I won't tease you. So you moved from Jonkershoek to where?
Yeah, so we moved from Jonkershoek to Wraithby. So in 2010, we bought a 3-hectare small holding.
Where's Wraithby?
Wraithby is a little town next to Stellenbosch, between Stellenbosch and Somerset West,
Why
which most
doesn't
people
anyone
don't
else
know
know
about
about
it there. No, luckily not. So if you turn off at Ken Forrester and you drive down the Winery Road, you get the 96 Winery Road restaurant that Ken owns.
I've seen a sign there that says Wraithby.
And right behind the restaurant, there's a little town community. We've got a little corner shop cafe.
So is that where your place is?
Yeah. We're right next door to Post House and Anvilka.
I know exactly.
Foothills Vineyards, Lindgrove Estate. They're all sitting there around us. And what's beautiful is you just turn off the highway and it's dead quiet. And we're on a dead-end road, a small little property. We've got about 1.3 hectares of Cabernet that we planted a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's still young fruit. So maybe I'll do a estate cab in about 10 years from now.
Real estate cab.
Real estate cab. It'll be the Le Riche Estate Cabernet Sauvignon. That I'm really dreaming of.
I want the first bottle.
We can talk about that. But and that move actually brought us closer to our main source of fruit. So we've always been working about 60% of the reserves coming from the Helderberg coastal or that lower Helderberg area. And it's a difficult region to kind of wrap your mind around because there's very few producers who make a pure expression of it. The Graham Beck.
What was it called?
That was the gravel. Coffee Stone. The Coffee Stone Cab.
Coffee Stone Cab, I think.
Was I think one of the best examples of what that region tastes like. The old J.P. Bredell wines are also from around there. So there's some beautiful wines. The first Neil Ellis's actually came off Anvilka. in 1983.
I'm a big fan of Van Wilker. Those boys who bought that farm know exactly what they're doing.
No, it's a spectacular
They've got a pedigree
farm.
5,000 miles long as well, and they knew exactly. That little space where you are is, I've got this thing that I think we need to make a little power group about. Everybody talks about, Napa and Sonoma is fabulous and super Tuscans and first growths and this and that. Every wine producing region has got something. I think that we have to establish something called Super Stellenbosch.
Well, why don't we just call it Stellenbosch?
It's just Super Stellenbosch, like a Super Tuscan. It's a Super Stellenbosch because there's Stellenbosch and there's Stellenbosch. Same as there's Tuscany and there's Tuscany.
Yeah.
So there are Super Stellenbosches, and they come from specific little pockets of places. And it really does produce some of the best fruit in the world. It just does.
No, it's definitely there. And with Stellenbosch Cabernet, we are busy, and the Stellenbosch wine routes, we've really started working the last 5 years to identify wards, regions, what are the flavor profiles coming from each of the mountains and each of the wards, and doing that drill down of what makes the different components of Stellenbosch so unique. And it's a tough area to understand.
On that note, this is where we can tell everybody about your Cab Reserve, because from what I can gather, you have really, really honed in on that. And you go in search of specific vineyards. And from what I gather, when you vinify, you put them into specific tanks or barrels. And then those are the components that make up the reserve. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's tell them, how many of those components have we got? Where does the big engine and gearbox for the reserve come from?
So
my phone's supposed to be switched off. I'm sorry. Oh my God. Sorry, Callum.
So basically my gearbox is between Wraithby and Firgrove. I've got one farm out in Firgrove where we've been working with them since 1998, Christo, and he's now his daughter's just taken over, which I'm very, very excited about.
That's one of my favorite fruit places.
No, the fruit
from the fruit bowl. That's the best part of the fruit bowl.
It's spectacular, and it's mainly grape growers in the area. So you can get a couple of. I think Bernard Bredell is one of the guys who's really trying to champion the region. I know Jocelyn Hogan's Divergent is coming from the Cab Franc Cab and Cinso are all coming from blocks that I share with her.
Are they?
So that's another great example.
She's making
of it.
nice wine.
It's beautiful wines that she's making. So there's Peter also does quite a few wines from around there as well. Obviously working with all the fruit in the region. So there's some beautiful examples.
So that's your big gearbox.
There. So that's my gearbox. And then we always were in the Jonkershoek. But I think 2022 we've moved out of Jonkershoek fully. I'll be going back in again, but we're busy replanting vineyards.
Why did you? Oh, I was going to say, did you replant? What was it? A little bit virus thing?
Well, that block, it was a virus thing, but it's also the old thing of Marcus Jooster and everything around there, which we don't want to go into too much detail in. But the farm was sold.
It's nice to have a gangster wine every now and again.
I know, it's quite cool.
Let's have a gangster wine.
Adds a little bit of spice to it. But I don't want to tell people because otherwise they'd stop buying my wine. There's quite a few people who are not very happy about Steinhoff. But in any case, that farm was sold. There's new ownership that's come in, and they wanted to kind of revamp the whole space. So the vineyard was pulled out. But I'm working there with Warren Ellis about doing replantings on that site. And then, is
he sharing with you?
No, not from Klein Gastro, unfortunately.
Coming from a father who was the original cuckoo winemaker, he used to go and lay eggs in everybody else's cellar. He was the original cuckoo winemaker.
He was. He was one of the first ones that went out on his own.
He was.
And yeah, I mean, look at for how long was he at Stark Conde renting up there? I know. From Odin Nectar. And well, now they've got their own space. So now he had to make his own nest. So, Which, but yeah, so there's just not a lot of space available in Jonkershoek to buy from.
Yes.
So we've got our sites, but with the vineyard being pulled out, we need to replant. So there's about about 10 years. But we've known this coming for about 10 years. So I've shifted over onto the Simmelsberg Mountain. So we're getting there from around 3 blocks that we're working with. And then I've actually recently, in the last 5 years, we've started putting in Upper Helderberg. So that's the Helderberg North region. Above no, on the Helderberg.
Helderberg by Boschendal.
So above the R44. So Ristenfrede, Ernie Als.
I'm so bad with where I am in Cape Town. I stay in Joburg and sell it.
Yeah, so no, not by Boschendal, but Boschendal's actually just taken over 150 hectares on the Helderberg. Which is also quite interesting. They're still one of my vineyards, so I'm still not very happy about them.
You've got to watch Tim Hutchinson.
I know, they're very sneaky. They come in, you suddenly hear rumours and they've taken it over.
You've got to wake up early in the morning to be smarter than Tim Hutch. Yeah.
But it's for me part of it's actually very exciting because you're seeing farms where the farms were really struggling.
Yes.
The vineyards were struggling. There was a lot of virus around and the families who were farming them just didn't have the capital to replant the entire farm.
And it's expensive.
It's extremely expensive.
I mean, everybody thinks there's this dream, there's this wonderful romance around a wine farm. And we can see why. It's just exquisite. Who doesn't want to wake up in the Western Cape on a Monday morning and have those mountains as your backdrop to your office? I mean, who doesn't want that? But it's very expensive.
It's very expensive.
It is.
But what Boschel have done is they've actually got long-term leases on these farms. So the farmers are still owning their land.
Good.
But they know that the whole farm's being farmed basically on a rental system.
And that's good because you don't want to erode heritage. Heritage plays an enormous part in the intrinsic value of any wine. So we know that. So that's a good thing.
And now at least all those virus vines are gone. We lost a couple of heritage vineyards, but it was kind of necessary as well.
Sometimes when you get too old, you have to be put up to pasture. Will you boys do that to me? When you say Carrie's too
you're
bloody
still very
old,
far away from that.
we're going to send her. We're going to put her on one of our farms and tell her to shut up.
I don't think that's going to happen. So we've moved up into the Helderberg. I was just feeling that there's a component of it brings such a lovely broad tannin structure. Big, powerful tannins, lovely, savoury black fruit, olive tapenade, if you don't go too ripe on the wines. And it's an important
component. So those slopes, north-facing slopes?
North-facing slopes.
Yeah.
Warmer slopes. And you've got this band between 150 to 400 metres where Cabernet really performs.
Excels, yeah.
And then once you go over 400, you start to get a little bit more red fruit coming in on the cabs.
And it gets a bit colder. And
it's a little bit cooler. It's
a bit like this. Does David Nieuwert's 5 Generations have some cold climate Cabernet? Because it's very fresh and very sort of restrained.
It does, but he also goes quite ripe on them. So you get that beautiful black fruity kind of character that does come in. I mean, he does a very, very good example of it.
Does.
But he's also got the ability up where he is that he can ripen for so long. He doesn't have virus. So everything just runs and ripens really well. But once you go over that 400-meter belt, then suddenly you start thinking, okay, Uvamira. Chardonnay. And then the high altitude Chardonnay in Stellenbosch starts to kick in. So it's just amazing to see how with that temperature flow going up the mountain and the way in which air moves up and down the mountain slopes, it completely changes where we work, how we work. And even though you might be turning towards the north from an aspect point of view, there's still sea breeze coming in and there's still this diurnal shift, maritime climate coming in, that you're making Chardonnays with amazing acidities in some way where you wouldn't really put the connection there.
Where are you making your Chard from?
Our Chard's coming from the Polka Dry and Firgrove.
Do you know that
so
Polka
sea breeze
Dry,
is coming in.
That Polka Dry area, I'm very rude about it because it's not the prettiest place on planet Earth.
No, well, it's the best wine region in Dryfontein.
I love the Torin boys.
What's
but the Polka Dry is ugly. There's pylons, there's electrical pylons that run through the thing, and it's just not a pretty place. I mean, let's be honest.
If you turn towards the mountains, it's very pretty.
Listen, you boys are all very rude about where I come from. And I think there are parts of Joburg that's very pretty. I'm going to be rude about the Polka Dry. It's fucking ugly. It's what my granny would have called fugly. It is fugly. So,
it might be, but it's very exciting at the moment.
It's got the best soils. Really has. You can make there's some very smart wine coming out of there. Maybe not best, but of the best.
There's a couple of guys there who will now be quite mad at me about that. But I think there are amazing soils. But what the Polka Dry is it's marginal, especially with Cabernet. And there's vintages where they are unbelievable, and then there's vintages where they just struggle to ripen their cabs. And that point of kind of that bottom end of ripeness is actually beautiful, especially in Cabernet. That's what Bordeaux is.
I just about to say,
Bordeaux in a bad vintage is undrinkable.
Polka Dry is like Bordeaux, which is why Bordeaux's prices are governed. They're vintage specific.
Exactly.
Which is what ours should be. Ours should be vintage specific. I don't mind selling a client a Le Riche Cab for 2,500 Rand a bottle for the 2021 vintage, and maybe 1,000 Rand for the 2002 vintage. Do you know what I mean? Just off the top of my head. We should be more vintage specific because it's farming. And where you say it's marginal like that, it absolutely is. And that's exactly what Bordeaux and Polka Dry is exactly. It's almost marshy. It's like, I think it might even be like reclaimed seabed.
It depends on where one moves. If once you go over the hill, say on Donnie Carinus' farm, his bottom lying areas are actually pure sand. Because you're coming up from the Cape Flats where it's pure beach.
It's beach.
But as you move up that hill, you start to move over into the oak leaf soil. So then you get to Turin and Reinecker, also the slopes of Currybib. Where Duncan and those guys have worked. And if you ask Duncan, he knows about the clay on those farms because half his vineyard slid down the hill last year. So as you move up that slope, you go from these pure sands to coffee stone duplex to lovely rich clay soils. And if you can get the right aspect and you can get the right pockets, there's some beautiful, beautiful Cabernet vineyards.
Yeah, big time.
But in general, it's Chenin and Chardonnay country and Cabernet Franc. As well. There's some beautiful examples of there. If you ask Pereira, he's focused in and zoomed in on those areas.
I like that bit along where Cordoba is like a Cab Franc street.
Yes, but that's on
my Cab Franc bit.
Yeah, but that's the southern tip.
Bergish.
That's the southern tip of Helderberg. They've got that coolness coming in. But there's for me more power in that section on the Cabernet Francs, where there's more of that spice and herbaceousness and acidity coming out of the Polka Dry.
Yeah.
And it's that juxtaposed between the two ends in the end. And it's and that's why there's these little microcosms and pockets. If you look at the Helderberg with Cabernet, that northern exposure, they don't really have bad vintages there. And
not really.
The Simonsberg, a little bit more red fruited, very linear tannin, but their Cabernet is on its own in a pure example is a little bit more difficult.
It's a bit acidic for me. I don't want my Cabernet to appear acidic.
But the moment you add a touch of Merlot and Cabernet Franc, the wines develop. So you see on the Simonsberg, you see Cabernet much more blended in with Bordeaux-style blends, where the Helderberg gets that big, luscious ripeness. It's sort of our left bank, right bank, isn't it? No, exactly. And those two big mountains and the aspects and how those things change. Firgrove is actually where we get a vineyard that year on year has been performing as one of our best, which is our Stainsrust vineyard, Cabernet vineyard. And that vineyard had made up 30 to 40% of our reserve. We unfortunately had to pull that one out this year, but I've already got a second vineyard that's now 9 years old.
Doesn't it break your heart to pull those out?
It's horrible.
You have to pull everything out.
Yes, unfortunately.
Can't you just leave the odd sort of lone
The problem
vine?
was that that vineyard was sitting at about 80% leaf roll virus.
Was it?
So,
and you tasted in the wine.
You can start to taste it. So last year we actually picked virus versus we picked on color and just looking at the berry itself, because once virus really kicks in, you get these pink berries that come through, and it's basically only good for rosé. It looks pretty, but it's not what Cabernet needs to be.
Gorgeous in the autumn time.
I know.
They turn red and gold and beautiful. Everybody thinks it's beautiful. But the bunches of grapes look prettier.
We
they
really
look
need to be crying about it. So it's one of those things. We've been doing major strides in the industry for it. We've got a couple of guys who have got unbelievable research around it. I mean, Jaco Egelbrecht and Etienne de Blanche and Vinpro, the work they've been doing, the research up here in Johannesburg, actually, there's been a lot of research done on leaf roll virus.
We're quite clever in Joburg.
I know, you guys can think a little bit every now and then. Especially when you decide to move down to Cape Town. It's good ideas. But no, so the work that's been done is amazing.
Basically, how many vineyards in different barrels in your cellar that you can choose your menu from for your reserve?
2024 vintage, I had 14 producers, 24 vineyards, 32 batches, and about 42 different components, because every batch we'll split into 3. We've got a press component, a drainage component, and a free run component.
So the permutations are massive. So you spend how long blending?
It's about
63 weeks blending your wine.
We're at the moment busy with 2023, and we did our first round in January, second round end of March. We've done another round in April. We've now got it nailed down to about 2, maybe 3 wines that we're looking at.
I want to come for one of them.
Yeah, you can definitely come and pop in.
Phone me and I'll stick my head in.
It's always April, May in that period.
I always remember sitting one day tasting with Michel Roland in France. Was putting together a final blend for one of the producers. And I've never in my life been in the presence of quite such a nose and palate. Unbelievable man. Completely unharnessable, untrainable, wild character.
Yeah.
But an olfactory memory that honestly is quite magical. It's like an alien person. He's got such a good palate and such a good nose.
There's a few people I've met in my life who've been able to do that, and they're sitting in a tasting, they're busy blending. Michel is one of those, and just listening to winemakers who've worked with him, where he'll sit down, taste through the wines, he's like, we need
5%,
1% of fresh juice in this, and he'll take the 1%, add into the blend, and poof, suddenly the whole thing pops.
And he doesn't even write anything down.
Yeah.
It's all here, as I say, in that olfactory memory. It's quite remarkable.
And there's been one guy in South Africa who I've met who had that level of skill, and that's a guy called Tinus van Niekerk. I don't know if you've come across him, but he used to be the master brain behind the Olive Brook range that Spa used to do.
Ah, that's quite right.
And Tinus is based up here, but he's got 2 PhDs. He consults for wineries in France. He did his 1 PhD on sensorial work from Bordeaux University, and he flies under the radar in the South African industry. But
nobody will understand it really, and if they do, they'll tell him to bugger off.
We sat down with him blending for over about an 8-year period, and just watching him put together a 5-way Bordeaux style blend, and just sitting, and you can see his mind just go, taste through the wines, his mind just go tick, 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 and he's like, okay, let's do that. Taste it, that's not right, we need to add a little bit more of this, and boom, he nails it every single time.
And I tell you why, the other thing is that it sounds awful, but you do need to have a very comprehensive understanding of retail and what people actually want to drink.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the big trick. That's the big, big, big trick. You need to know what people want to drink. But anyway, that's aside the point. We digress. So you have got a massive, massive, massive amount to choose from.
Yeah.
To put your reserve together. And on average, how many cases of reserve do you bottle in a year? In a vintage?
So we at the moment sitting around 12,000 bottles. So that's about 2,000 cases of 6.
It's not a huge amount.
No, it's not. I wish I could do more. But hopefully we will going into the future. We've been working really hard to get the vineyards in place to be able to make more. But it's one of those wines where it's so vintage dependent. In 2019, we made 5,000 bottles. In 2020, I made 13,000 bottles. And it's purely just based on how the vineyards performed, what the options were that we had, and then looking through the blends, tasting and evaluating where we find that optimal kind of blend that works in the end is what will determine the volume that we have. So I go into a vintage having no idea how much reserve we can produce.
Yeah.
And it's really dependent.
And you produce one every year?
We make one every year. So for us, it's about making the best possible wine that we can make in that vintage. And what you generally see is that vintages that are a little bit more tricky, the volume comes down. And great vintages like 2017, it was like, well, there's so many options, we can just put it all together. And vintage will determine and dictate how much fruit we have to work with. And it's all about what the vineyards come in. And when we talk about blending, we blend with Cabernet only. It's 100% Cabernet, and that's for us really important. Both the cabs that we do are 100%. We haven't added a splash of anything else over the years, because it's trying to find that expression of Stellenbosch where we want to showcase the whole of Stellenbosch. It's not a single vineyard site, terroir-driven wine. It is terroir-driven, but it's the terroir of Stellenbosch we're trying to showcase. And if you want to taste the individual components, come walk with me through the cellar. They're all in my barrels. But they're not... It's when you taste my reserve, you've got to understand that this is about showcasing our very best interpretation of Stellenbosch for that season, because Stellenbosch and Cabernet are so intertwined, and that's what we want to showcase in the end.
And I think there's nowhere to actually research it other than in my head. And I think that my memory is telling me I keep a score, because Le Riche has just been one of my favorite wines for many, many years in South Africa. And I think that the Le Riche Cabernet and or Reserve is the most highly awarded cab in the country. I think it's had more Platter 5 stars, high points from people around the world. I think it is the most awarded Cabernet in the country. I'll check it out, guys, and I'll make sure, and I'll let you know. I don't want to give you false information. But I think it is.
I think it's going to be close on between us, Boeknotskloof. They got a lot of 5 stars, and then there was that.
I don't think that they even enter their stuff anywhere too much anymore. Mark Kent is like, he doesn't give it them.
And then there was obviously that period where Neil Ellis and Stark Conde were flipping out around the Three Pines vineyard. So maybe not as many 5 stars on each of the individual wines, but that vineyard delivered 5-star and 5-star and 5-star.
I want that vineyard before I die.
Who
owns that vineyard now? Still a Stark Conde.
Yeah. So there's a couple of those just magic vineyards to Stellenbosch. If you think it's the Peter Barlow block up on Langs, with Langs 1 at the very top of Rustenburg. It's the Three Pines vineyard. It's our Stainsrist vineyard, which we've been working with so many years. There's a couple of these little gems throughout the industry where they just showcase so beautifully. Thelema the Mint block.
Thelema the Mint block, is absolutely beautiful. And then there's another one that, what's his name from the Torren has?
Emil. Oh, no, not Emil. Sorry.
No, the Aubrey. What's his name? RD. What's his name? Why am I being so silly? Who's the MD of Albie?
Yes.
He's got a cab vineyard on that farm somewhere that he uses.
There's one just above with Reinicke as well, where their Reinicke Reserve comes from. So there's these little pockets where of Cabernets that can stand up as single vineyards on a year-to-year basis, which are spectacular.
And we wonder what... We wonder, before we started recording, Christo and I were just saying that sadly, contrary to popular belief, winemaking is really a combination of maths and art. And it's only the people who can do both. And there are not many people who've got a left and a right brain that are trainable. You know, you've either got one or the other. And there seems to be a streak that runs through the Le Riche family that affords you the ability to do both. You've got highly intelligent wine that is so seductive and so delicious. You just want to drink it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I cannot explain to you what that 2021 vintage tastes like. I tasted it yesterday. It is just one of the nicest wines I've ever tasted in South Africa. Are you happy with it? I mean, it's just bloody gorgeous.
And I think
the 2022 is also ordinary cab.
Yeah.
Is also completely different. So 22 must have been a really good vintage for you as well.
I like 22. They're these lovely voluptuous wines. There's beautiful fruit components on it. They don't have the tannin structure and the acidity of 21.
No.
But it makes them accessible. And that's kind of
they're more
earlier
for drinking now.
Exactly.
And it's like putting a big... I can't even explain to you guys. It's like putting a big mouthful of red and black suede into your mouth. You know what I mean? It's got those gorgeous, soft suede tannins and beautiful, rich, juicy fruit. It's like biting into the juiciest strawberries and blackberries and mulberries and all those things that we love in Cab. It's delicious. You have to have some. But I don't think you've got lots, have you?
Of the 21?
Yeah.
No, unfortunately not.
See?
We're coming off the back of the 2020 Reserve, which was, I mean, we were just flabbergasted by how well that wine did.
No, it was gorgeous.
And the 2020 on an international scale, I've never seen another Cabernet in this country go in that direction, where we got the 99 with Tim Atkin, we got the Decanter Best in Show, 97.
Yeah, you got Spectator also rated it somewhere, didn't they?
Robert Parker gave it a 98 as well.
or something, yeah.
So, I mean, that's basically, we've just tipped off the 3 biggest awards that there are internationally for South African wine.
No.
With one wine walking out there. So that wine walked out the cellar within 2 months. And it was actually, we were like, well, this is a bigger volume. We might have a little bit more wine to be able to sell. And it disappeared.
But it's like manna from heaven. You can all breathe. You can pay school fees. Hey, you can do what you need to do.
I'm not going to complain about it. It's absolutely amazing. But it does give you the issue of, well, now there's suddenly this demand which you've got to meet and you've got to manage. And the 21 is well, we're releasing it out on the 1st of June, but it's already allocated out.
I spoke to Heather yesterday. She said to me, well, I don't even know how much we're going to get. There's nothing.
So there's a very small amount. Our members are going to be getting their emails next week, so they'll get their allocations. Vinimark has got its allocation, so there'll be a small volume.
And
that
do
goes
you frantically rush back to your study and say, let me try and see what recipe it was that I did last year? That made this magic happen.
No, look, we obviously every time we start blending, I look at the 2 previous vintages. We see at what works. I've always try and make one of the blends that when we start out, I always make 5 different blends. And the first one I make is a replica of the previous year. And it's very seldom that the replica is repeated.
Oh, really?
Most of the time I'm tweaking the blend to other direction. So it's funny, like the 19 Reserve had 32% upper Helderberg fruit. The 2020 had 10%. So it completely flipped around. And I tried it the other way around. It didn't work. The fruit just didn't sit in the blend. It didn't show well.
But you become so familiar. It's like one of your children. You know them from soup to nuts. You know them. So you know what you need to do to your babies to make them prettiest. You know how nice
you do. And you also know what, like, if we taste through the blends, we'll often get to, we'll have 2 wines. We'll be like, this is a beautiful wine, but it doesn't have the Le Riche signature on it, where the other blend has the Le Riche signature on it.
And it's very important. I think that consistency is something that is just, if you look at all the great wines of the world, and please God, you get to the point where you are like one of the first growths, who are producing a lot of wine from tiny properties.
That's what we're trying.
That's what you need to do, and that's what I love about you, because your family has consistently driven a horse that says we want to produce the top quality Cabernet and lots of it, so it's for everybody. Because I don't think anybody really knows, I suppose we could get the answers if we ask nicely, how much wine is produced at Lafite and Le Tour and all of those sort of things.
It's easy to make if they've got 100 hectares.
Nobody's ever said no to me if I've phoned and asked for some. They've always said, yeah, of course we'll send you some, Carrie. It's nothing
always scarce, but it's never sold out.
Never.
That's a champagne recipe.
And it's a very, very smart marketing tool. We need to learn from the French, and I think that you and your father are doing it really well. But
I wish I had more to sell, but we'll get there.
How many hectares do you farm in total to put your reserve together?
So we've got probably about 16 hectares in the portfolio of vineyards that we're working with, that is coming in from.
And on your own property where you all live, you've got
1.3 hectares, which is now 2 years old. So it's a minute. Once those vineyards are older, they'll probably be able to make up about 10% of our production. But I'm only expecting from half of that, which will be at reserve quality. The other component, the soils are just not there to. I would be, if I can get them there, I'll be absolutely amazed.
Just keep feeding them.
I will,
just
but I mean,
feed them enormously. I mean, that's going to be like your rose garden.
The one section looks like a beach. It's literally pure sand. It's 2 meters deep.
You'll be surprised what comes off the beach.
No, so we've now taken a regenerative approach to the soils. We're trying to build up the carbon in the soil using a lot of cover crops.
I've got a product for you that I must speak to you about. It's a byproduct of a mine, a garnet mine.
Okay.
I'll speak to you about it when we're not boring the people and get too technical about it all. I'll tell you about it. It's interesting. It's a product they're using in the Middle East to turn sand into soil.
Oh, wow. That's probably a little bit like biochar.
It is biochar. Yeah. It's biochar. It's a byproduct.
Okay, yeah. So the regenerative agriculture for me is something which we've seen this coming through more recently, but it's something that's been practiced for so long. And as someone like Johan Reinicke obviously is a specialist in organics and biodynamics, and those are words we know, but there's there's elements in those that I like and elements I don't like. But in the end of the day, if we feed our soil correctly, a vine, we only see half of the vineyard above the ground. And so much is in the soil.
Absolutely.
And it's about being able to take those soils, preserve them for the next generation, improve them, build that carbon matter. And over the last 60 years, we've had farming practices that have just depleted carbon.
Well, the other thing is that I'm a great proponent of the fact that the planet is much bigger than us. It's much more intelligent than us. The universe does really know best. This is where we get deep on Carrie's Connoisseurs.
Yeah.
And whilst I am of the opinion, I agree with you that we need to replenish soils. The planet does that by itself. The problem is that there's too many people. So we've got too many people farming this planet. We need to move to a different place. But the climate is not always completely conducive to that which you would like to be farming. So if we want to stay in the Western Cape and we want to continue to farm grapes, we need to find whatever it is to put back into that soil, which is exactly what people like yourself are doing. And modern day farmers are doing. I mean, my generation, the guys were a little bit sort of lost corp about it. They didn't put too much back into the soil.
There's also a knowledge base around, and I think what we know today in terms of how to sequestrate carbon and build up the soils, and the French understand this because in France you only own the property.
Built on a marsh.
Yeah, but you only own your property for 100 years, and you've got to hand it over, and you've got to repay taxes. So for them, you are a steward of the land. You are there for a period of time, and then you hand it over. That's how they operate in Burgundy, and it's so important to make sure that what you hand over is better than what you received. And that is really where a lot of our viticulture is busy going towards and moving. And it'll be great for water retention. I think the quality of fruit will improve. And it's something I'm really excited about to see where that's going to move in the future. And
is there a new little Le Riche that I need to know about who's going to be a you?
There's two little ones. Well, there's one already. He's 2.5. Lucas was a 21 baby. So he's got a
Lucas.
Very,
he's got a
very
nice
lucky.
vintage.
He's got a couple of magnums stashed away from him.
So my child had an 85 vintage, which was very nice. I bought him some Angelus Magnums for his 85 vintage.
Ooh, lovely.
And when he got big, I sold them and bought him a townhouse.
It's also a good investment.
It is. It's the best thing to do.
So my dad's two vintages were 82 and 84, which were two of his best. And mine have now been 2021 and 2024. I'm expecting my second son in August.
And I must say, you and I chatted briefly yesterday, but I think that 2017, and I don't know about your 2019. I can't remember if I've tasted 2019 from you, but I like some 2019s that I've tasted. 17 and 19. Everybody shouted from the rooftops about 2015. And I've tasted some shit wine from 2015. I have. It was hailed as one of the best vintages in, the Western Cape for a long time. I think 2017 and some of the 2019s and definitely that 21 of yours. So it looks like it's all odd numbers.
For now, 24, I got all my analysis back yesterday, so I've been very excited, and that was kind of my last little cherry on top.
Is 24 good?
I've got some amazing wines in the cellar.
Have you?
So I'm really excited to see what 24 is going to deliver as well. We've had a run of spectacular vintages from 2015. 15 was tricky, and I think there's a lot of wines that went too far, too ripe, too big. But
I don't think they're going to last.
But those that are good are going to be spectacular.
Very good.
I agree with Tim that the Pole Sour 2015 is a spectacular wine. But what I saw 15s do is they just shut down completely. From the vintages I've watched develop, from about 4 years old to now 9 years old, those 15s just disappeared on us. And now they're starting to open up. Those that I've tasted have come back. Our reserve went completely closed, and now it's starting to show again. So you definitely saw, for some reason, that vintage just shut down very tightly.
So do we think that it's too early to tell that Lucas, even with his good vintage, how are we going to coerce him into taking over as the third generation winemaking?
Well, somehow my dad convinced my sister and I to do it. So
yes,
hopefully I'll be able to do the same. I guess if you give him a couple of nice bottles of wine to drink as he's growing up,
what?
that usually helps.
I think he's got I think he's got occultish powers, your father. Like I say, he's a great Cabernet whisperer, and he clearly has a large influence over his children too.
No, definitely.
You do as you're told.
luckily we get along really well, so it does
help.
He's
the most gorgeous man. I love your father, and he's been such an asset to the wine industry in South Africa. He really has. While we're talking about him, do you still have your property in France that you partner
so
with?
that actually ended in 2006 already.
Oh, did it?
So that was only a 4-year stint.
Oh, I thought so. Riche doesn't come from there.
So the Riche name comes from there.
Yes, but I thought you were swapping grapes or juice or something.
No, not at all. Basically, what happened there was that it was a Joburg couple who we had partnered with, and they had opened the winery there. And they had made a lot of their own wines, and then they quickly realized that making wine is much easier than selling wine. So when I was working at Angelus in 2009, we went to visit them, and I was sleeping in tank 6 and my dad was sleeping in tank 9. They turned the winery into a house, and they're now into property development and restoring old properties through the Entre de Mer in France.
Probably a whole lot more.
Yeah, and
they're
still drinking the wines that they made. So that very quickly
the dream
changed.
Yes.
Exactly. So we only did 3 vintages of that.
Okay.
I've always been playing with the idea of doing something again, but
you should.
Maybe when the time comes, I'll start a venture somewhere. But at the moment, I've got too much to do in Stellenbosch, so it's not on the near future, but definitely in the long term dream.
And is your sister married with babies?
Yes, she's got 2, Emma and Lex. I think they're 2016 and 18 vintage. Yeah, so they're now 7 and 9. Yeah. So she's got 2 little kids as well. She's living on the farm as well with her husband. So they.
And is he involved in the business?
No, my brother-in-law is not in the business, and my wife is not in the business, and we keep them very far separated from everything.
Keep them far away, otherwise you'll be divorced very soon.
No, it's no. They've got their own careers and their own directions. My brother-in-law trades commodities, and my wife is
somebody's got to make money.
Agent. Yeah, no, exactly. So they're definitely doing a little bit better than we are.
I was about to ask you. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. If I said to you, you've got 1 shot at your death row meal and drink, what is it?
Oh wow!
Death row, hey? It's the last one. What's it going to be?
It's a tough one. My wife was asking me this other day. Honestly, a good lamb loin chop, properly done on the braai, is always going to be.
What do you put on it?
One of my favorites.
Just salt and pepper.
Salt, pepper, a little bit of lemon. You don't need anything else if it's good quality meat from the Karoo. There will probably be broccoli and white sauce. It's been one of my favorites since I was 4 years old.
Okay.
Some lovely roast potatoes, and then from a wine point of view, it's going to depend on what I feel like on the day. There's so many.
But if now I know that there's a whole lot of people who are going to listen to this and they're going to say, let's make Christo's death row meal for dinner tonight. So we have to give them a wine to taste with it.
If I look at some of the standout wines I've had in my life, there's quite a few of the Bordeaux, lovely, beautiful old Bordeaux.
We love them.
I'm a big fan of Piemonte, and the Nebbiolos come out of there. Bordeaux White.
We love Bordeaux White.
Spectacular.
So expensive though, we can't afford it.
Stupidly expensive, but it's just, once those wines age, they are unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of beautiful old Stellenbosch wines, 82 Rustenburg, Superior.
82 was a
Magnum.
Fabulous vintage, eh?
Honestly, actually, if I could probably think of a wine to drink on my death row, it would be 82 Rustenburg, Superior and Magnum. My dad opened a bottle the other day with a tasting, and I had the wine the next morning.
It was still delicious.
With only so much in the bottle left over, and it was still singing. So it's just that wine just is, it's an occultish wine in this country.
Yeah, it is.
It's spectacular. I don't know how many bottles Artie Bardenholz ran away with when he left Rustenburg, but apparently he's still got a big stash of it.
I'm sure he did. No idea. I'm sure he did.
But it really has been one of my kind of those kind of benchmark wines where I do want to see our wines moving towards. Well, I think we're already in that lineup.
You're definitely there, yeah.
There's this romance around that wine. It was my sister's birth year as well. But yeah, let's say that I think the 82 Rustenburg Superior.
And a lamb chop,
and a lamb
broccoli and white sauce, roasty potatoes. Mm-hmm. Sounds good enough to me delicious. For a death row meal.
Exactly. And that's Lucas's favourite meal as well at the moment. So that'll definitely work well together.
Done.
Yeah.
Christo, thank you for coming, my darling child.
It's a pleasure.
It was lovely to chat to you, and thank you for treating me yesterday to your absolutely delicious wines. If you do nothing else this year, I keep saying that because I tasted some of Nick's wines from Oldenburg the other day. Gosh, they're just so delicious as well. There is such beautiful wine out there at the moment. And I find them all, and they all come and talk to me. So listen, and go and do as I say. Go and find yourself some Le Riche. If you can't find the Reserve, just buy the Cabernet.
Definitely. There's still some 21 Cab on the shelves.
The 21 Cabernet is delicious. Just have some. And if you don't want red wine, the Chardonnay is also jolly delicious.
It is. But you're not going to find it on a shelf.
Aren't we?
No,
it's only available in your cellar door.
Cellar door only. It's one of those that hardly anybody knows about. Yeah.
Jump online and see if you can find somebody at the cellar door. But you really do need to start entertaining yourself to some Le Riche wines. Thank you, my darling.
Thanks,
absolutely triumphant wine. Thank you.
Appreciate
Cheers.
It.
Another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.